Hi, I'm Crystal, and welcome to my channel, The Perfume Preppy, where we talk about all things fragrance related. I planned on trying to shoot some content a little earlier in the year and also some last year, but both life and work got in the way, so I wasn't able to. But I'm glad to be able to come back and make content for everyone. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. So today is going to be a mini Q&A, and I'm going to be talking about niche perfumes and also why some perfumes are really expensive. In my time away when talking about just fragrance related things with friends, that was a question that I kept hearing, which was how come some perfumes cost so much and things like that. And niche perfumes are kind of something that I've started looking into more or less because mainstream perfumes everyone knows about, but I was kind of curious about them myself. So let's just jump right into it. So I made myself some notes so that I could have my facts straight. But for why are some perfumes so expensive, the price of perfumes really factor into three things. So first, the time that it takes to formulate them. I think because by the time, the average consumer gets a perfume or a cologne, it's already bottled, it's, mass produced. We really don't think too much of it. But, every great perfume, somebody had to take out the time to formulate those scents and they had to, usually a lot of perfumes are from a design house or from a beauty label, and someone has to smell those scents and approve them and so on. So and that can take months, it can take even years. Coco Chanel number 5, it took a long time. It wasn't just a scent that was just put together. So there's a lot of different formulations that go into the composition of a fragrance to see if these notes mesh well together, if they're gonna smell well, if they're gonna break down well over the day. There's a science to it, which is something that we talk about on this channel. Secondly, ingredients and skill of perfumers. So, when we talk about the notes in a perfume, those are the ingredients, what it takes to blend them. Not everything blends well together. Not everything blends well on people. As I've said previously on this channel, vanilla based fragrances blend really well with me, but not everything with patchouli does. Some things with patchouli, yes, but mostly no. Usually there has to be much stronger notes kind of overpowering the patchouli for it to blend well on me. Everyone's body and composition and chemistry are different, and so the same thing with perfume. So the more raw the ingredients and the higher concentrate of ingredients, that factors into cost. Like we've talked about this on this channel before. Eau de parfum is going to cost more than say an eau de toilette, just because there's a higher concentration of the perfume oil, which means it's a stronger blend of those ingredients that make the fragrance itself. Also, the skill of the perfumer. Perfume, like being a perfumier, I believe it's pronounced in French, is a really high in demand job. We just don't think of it that way because, like I said, by the time we get a perfume or cologne, it's already made. But in France, especially where there's a lot of like beauty and cosmetic houses, that's a very, in demand job for someone to, be able to smell these notes and to mix them and to say, no, we want less of this note and we want more of this note. So it's absolutely a skill. It's not something that just anybody can do. And lastly, the packaging of the bottle itself, which I've come to see even a lot of like mainstream perfumes, the more ornate the bottle, generally speaking, it tends to cost more. One example that comes to mind, if anyone's familiar with it, Carolina Herrera Good Girl, you've seen it, it looks like a high heel shoe. That one, just the notes that are in that one by itself are kind of make it expensive, but then the bottle itself. Or even at Christmas time, if you're like shopping like around holiday season, the gift set. If you notice like the size of the bottle and like the artwork and how ornate the box itself is, or even if it comes in a tin, because I've noticed, especially last year, I saw a lot of fragrances that came in like a really like decorative like collector's tin. When they start coming in things like that you can like keep and save, they tend to cost more. That is reflected in the cost of the set itself, or even in the cost of the bottle. Another example that comes to mind is Jean Paul Gaultier, his Le Male or his Le Belle, or known as I've heard it called, the lady in the can or the man in the can. But it comes in like this can, and you have to unscrew it. And when you take the top off, it almost looks like you're presenting a trophy. So that factors in addition to the notes that are comprised in the fragrance itself, the presentation. So that factors into the cost also. And so next I wanted to talk about niche perfumes because, as I said, typically we just think more or less about, mainstream, perfumes, like you just go in a store and you get them. Niche perfumes are a little different because houses that make niche perfumes, they're a lot harder to find. They usually tend to come in a lot more ornate presentation, as I previously talked about, so they tend to cost a little more. But also, just the notes and the different things that are used to make those, perfumes or colognes or whatever, tend to also make them rather expensive. And what makes niche perfumes very unique is that they're very hard to find. You can't just walk in a department store and say, "Hey, I'd like this." Like Carolina Herrera, while it's one of my favorite fragrances, it's pretty much widespread. You can go into a department store and you can get it. Or you can go to an Ulta or Sephora and you can just walk in there and you can just, get it, or you can ask them, "Hey, where's the Carolina Herrera Good Girl?" And now there's several different iterations of that. But it's pretty easy to find. Niche perfumes and colognes, they're not something that, the regular consumer is really going to know about, and they're kind of meant to be a bit out of reach, which kind of adds to their allure and their value. Niche perfume brands also can explore a combination of scents that mainstream fragrances can't. So sometimes like certain like niche perfume brands, they may specifically make fragrances for like certain clients. Like there are certain brands that specifically make fragrances for the royal family of England, right? So that's not going to be something that's necessarily like widespread to everyone. However, they may say, "Oh, we make a fragrance for, this member of the royal family, or this member of the royal family really likes this fragrance." That's something that they can use to, add to their reputation. However, most of their scents, it's kind of like if you know about them, you know about them. If you don't, you don't. They're not widely mainstream, and that tends to be reflected in the price point also. So you're not going to be able to just walk into, say, even a high-end department store and pick it up. It's just you're going to have to either order it from the company directly, or they have their own boutiques and that sort of thing. An example that comes to mind is a fragrance house that I kind of stumbled on. It's called Designer Shake. It'll be in the description. I'll put a link to it. But they have men's and women's fragrances, and they're out of the UAE, and they're from the country of Bahrain. And one of their women's fragrances, I got a sample of it because I just kind of wanted to see what it was all about. I mean, the bottle for it is for the women's fragrance is very pretty, very ornate. But I just kind of wanted to see the scent itself and just kind of get a sample because like I said in one of my previous videos, over the pandemic, I did a lot of blind buying, but I usually try to avoid that. So if I can get a sample of something, especially for the price point that these are, Designer Shake fragrances tend to range anywhere from about 300 to 500, although fragrancenet.com has the ladies fragrance that I'm going to mention in a second. They have it for about 250, something like that, and that's literally the lowest I've seen it except for the mini sample. So if you're going to spend that kind of money on a fragrance, I absolutely think that you should know what it smells like. That's a lot of money to blind buy a fragrance unless you're really confident in the notes that are in it are going to blend well with you, but you never know. So the fragrance that I'm mentioning is Designer Shake Opulent Sapphire number 33, and that's the ladies. They have a whole separate collection for men, but they usually they have a Designer Shake Opulent Amethyst. I believe they have a Designer Shake Opulent Gold, and those are the women's. And they have a Designer Shake Opulent Emerald, and those smell really nice. You can get those off Scent City. I'll also put the link in the description so that you can check those out. But that would be an example of niche perfumes. And actually, Scent City, that particular website, tends to do a lot of things with niche perfume companies. Like I said, I just happened to stumble across this particular scent, and I heard about it, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting," So I just kind of wanted to check it out. But that particular company, that particular website, a lot of all the colognes on there and perfumes, I've never heard of of the companies that are listed. So, and I've looked at the price point on all those, and some of them are from foreign countries and things like that. So those would definitely be niche and not necessarily mainstream. So those would just be a couple of examples. And so with that, thank you for joining me. It has been a long time, and I've really missed making content and reaching out to all of you. So with that, I'll see you next time, and have a good day. Goodbye.